children go with the children's church, with the nursery, and let's just say hi to somebody this morning that's here with you today. Can we just have a moment? Hey, before you all really totally settle back in, I was asked, do we have coffee this morning, which is a funny question. We've always got coffee around here. I want to encourage you, if you want to get one, settle in. If we had chairs this morning, we would be sitting in chairs and getting in a circle and having conversation. That's kind of the mood. That's kind of the overall I like to have. So if you need to get a cup of coffee, grab a cup of coffee. It's blueberry cobbler, so on the special. I don't know why everybody gives me a weird look on blueberry, but anyway, the blueberry cobbler and regular non-church coffee. What? Yeah, see? Go with Shelly. Yum. So just go ahead and settle in here. While you're doing that, I was just told by someone who was standing on the up front this morning to let you know you guys sounded awesome this morning in the singing. I won't say who it was, but Cindy just said, tell them to please say that they did a great job singing this morning, because you did. Just hearing you do that was pretty amazing. So, see, she thinks you really sounded good. She's still fired up about it. Yeah. See, so I don't have a problem pointing out somebody who complimented you. That's good. Other couple things we want to let you know about coming up. Just look through here, again, if you would, with the things that are going to be taking place through the summer. In about, well, actually, what is the date today? 26. Ooh. In 1 month minus 1 day, those that have been working towards International Youth Convention, IYC, are going to be taking off for that day. And so once that really kicks in, it feels like, man, we're just going to be on that boom, boom, boom. Things are going on with camps and conventions and everything. So be watching for what's coming up to take place. Speaking of International Youth Convention, I did not have this in here, but we want to let you know, as far as we know, I don't have the official until all the numbers come in, but I'm pretty sure through conversation with Ingrid and others, we have reached the goal of what we needed to reach to make it to International Youth Convention. But that's, thank you to you all for doing that, because that was a lot. I mean, it's an over $12,000 trip to take this group to International Youth Convention, and you guys made that happen. So we really appreciate it. And now we're just down to the point of putting down the final pieces, meeting with the parents, and getting everything ready to go and take this all in. So really looking forward to it. I can tell from the International Youth Convention side, it's really kicking in because now they've created a Facebook page for all the IYC leaders. You hear something every day to get people excited. They're doing all the details, and you just know everything's about to kick in, and it's all right around the corner. So looking forward to summer, what comes with it, and we'll keep you updated as much as we can with the ins and outs and the ebbs and the flows. But one of the things is to remind you, if you have a child going to camp, to one of the camps, we do have scholarship available to help alleviate some of the funds to those camps. All we're asking is that there would be a letter written to the church council, just name, where they're going, how much the camp is, and just a little short thing as to why they're going, what they're hoping for while they're there. It's really that simple. And then we'll do the best we can with what we've got to try and help, like I said, alleviate. I know Renee did some looking at the possibility of, the best she could tell, of how many young people we have the potential of having go to camp, and there's like 24. At this point, we received 2 scholarship things. So we know that there's more out there. Please write that. We want to help. That's why that's in there. We want to help you as a family as you send your kids to camp too. So make sure that gets in as soon as you can. I think it's by our next meeting it was supposed to be in, correct, Renee? That's when they needed it, which was the next third Thursday, whatever that date is, as we go into June. That's what's on there. The other thing to let you know about is, because there's just a little change, but we're 2 weeks away from our next concert. I don't know if you've kept up at all with the group that was here previously. I don't understand some of the things I do on Facebook. Maybe you look somebody up and all of a sudden now I'm getting a lot of stuff on their tour and what's going on. And it's really cool. They just had a little reel on Facebook with I can never say his name right, George Pappas, or however you said his name. Pap. Okay, we're going to go with Pap, George Pap. And, Alexander. See, I really don't know the name. Alexander Pap. I don't know, where did I get George? Anyway, Alexander, same as George, Pap, has a thing on there where they said we really enjoyed traveling across the area and the country, getting to exclaim and share the goodness of God, praying for an awakening, which is the new song that he has out, and praying this over these towns. And they said we couldn't keep from recording this in the Garden of the Gods in Colorado, and it's the 3 of them with 2 guitars and singing that great awakening song. And it's at the end of, kind of towards the end of their tour, and there was just something cool. They said we've just really become family ourselves, and to see that and to know that they were here as part of that. And now there's another group coming. But the other part that's really neat is that whoever puts this on, whoever dreamed this up, whoever started this, recognized through this group that went and hearing back from them, they said, we loved going and getting to pray over these people, to meet with these people, but we loved getting to hear the stories of the people in these small towns and to hear what's going on in these small towns and to hear what God is doing in these small towns. But also, we recognize the hurt and the need that's taking place in these small towns. And so we're doing a little shift this next time around. And what they shared with us is from now on, from today on, all the ticket sales that go on, I believe, in that particular small town, they want to take that money and have us pick somebody in our town that we can bless with it, that's someone that may be in need. They said, we don't need to do it for us, but we want you guys to find somebody. So there's 2 or 3 people that have been talking and praying about who maybe in here might be able to use that. But I just think that's awesome that you have these artists that, again, Alexander even, that we wouldn't know, these are not small town guys. These are guys that have traveled the world, played at huge venues, done big concerts, and they're coming to our town, seeing the need, caring and loving on the people, and even wanting to say, we're just going to give back to those in that town, in that need, because they care about this. They're going to be another group, a different group of people in 2 weeks coming through with that same heart. So I encourage you, be a part of that. Even if you go, you know what, I don't care for that music, it's too loud, it's not my style or whatever, it's $20 to buy a ticket, okay? So now you know that your $20, even if it didn't show up, is going to go to bless somebody. So even then, you can get the ticket. And if you don't want to go, give it to somebody else and use that to help somebody in Waukene, whoever gets chosen through that. But I wanted to share that with you because we're 2 weeks away, but that's pretty awesome, too, that they're willing to do that. Yeah. Okay, and what we do also have decided is if we got 2 or 3 or 4, we're going to just present them to them with their stories and let them decide what to do. It's on their heart. So, yeah, let us hear it. Let us know the best that you can. I know that there may be situations where it's private and you can't, but the best that you can, let us know because I think that's pretty great. So, anyway, beyond that, just pay attention to what's going on this summer, and we'll keep trying to get it out there in front of you, okay? Would you open to Matthew chapter 12? We're going to finish up finally in this section, and then we're going to take a turn through the summer where we're going to not go back into Matthew. We're going to do a little bit more of a focus on the idea of discipleship, being disciples, whole health, whole body discipleship, and we're going to put a focus on that through this summertime because as I've mentioned before, summer is a little bit different. We know that. Schedules change. We see that even right here, right now. You can feel a difference. You know that that's going on. And as I looked at, if we continued through Matthew, I just didn't feel like it was time to go through. There was something else to focus on. The other part is there's going to be like a 3-week span where I won't be here between being at these conventions, getting to speak at a camp, and then I don't know where I'm the other one. Anyway, they're going to be gone at these places. And so there'll be some others coming in to share with you during those times. But when I'm here, I want to focus on this more whole, true apprenticeship to Jesus, loving Him with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, being people that give Him everything. And we're going to focus on that. And we're going to take a little deeper dive into what that would look like. But the other reason why I want to do this is because of the challenge that I laid out last week that is still in my heart and I still strongly believe in. Because in the summer, you know, we make plans to enjoy the summer. I mean, man, it's just, you almost forget how great it is to enjoy a nice day until you have a nice day. Like just being out even yesterday, mowing the lawn, hanging out. It's weird in the summertime. There's times where I'm like, I might be tired, but I just don't want to go in yet. There's just something nice about being outside on a nice day. And so that's what comes with this time of the year. That's why people go and do what they're doing. And we make plans to enjoy it. We make family vacations. We make other opportunities to go do something fun. But my challenge is, as intentional as we are to plan ways to enjoy the summer, I want to remind you to intentionally make plans to still enjoy God and the relationship with Him. Be just as intentional about remembering Him and enjoying Him even in and through these moments. Be intentional about enhancing the relationship with Him. And I would say, I want to challenge you to be intentional about inviting other people who feel the same way about Him to help you do that. Because you may not be here with this particular family, but you may be around others. You may be around other people that are there. Be intentional about inviting other people into helping you with those plans. A lot of it comes from, like I said, a mentor of mine back when I was in college, and I went on a Christmas break. And his comment to me just before I left was, hey, Jared, go take a break. Just remember not to take a break from God, but enjoy Him in this change. Spend more time with Him. Really focus on Him. And I want to make that challenge to us so that when the school year starts and we're back into the flow and we're back into the rhythm and not all the nice days are in front of us and we're all together, we're more excited because of that time we have. We're more excited to be together. We're more excited to worship. We're more excited to walk with Him. So that's just a challenge I'm going to keep putting out, and it's going to go with a little bit with what we share in this, what we're going to focus on through this summer in being disciples of Him. But we're going to finish in Matthew chapter 12 today. And as we do, I was reading this and preparing for this, and it dawned on me, we've spent the last couple months looking at a moment in Jesus' life and ministry where He was basically just being attacked. Not like physically attacked, but His ministry was trying to be ruined, His credibility was trying to be ruined, His direction was being questioned, His whatever, and it was being done by a bunch of insecure, losing control, religious leaders. Pharisees and teachers of the law, as Scripture calls them. They were getting concerned that they were losing their grip on what they thought things should be, and so they were coming after Jesus and everything His disciples and them did and questioning it and calling it to the carpet, trying to bring Him down. And we've spent the last couple months looking at that, and it's basically the bottom line, and the most simple way to put it was they were trying to be religious. They were letting religion take over what He was trying to bring. And when we look at this, I think most of what we have looked at and what we've talked about and what we heard Jesus share would not be real controversial to us today. Like we would probably actually find ourselves too eagerly agreeing with him and welcoming his words even today with what we experience today. We might be hearing it going, yes, that's right, let's hear that again, let's share that again. And I realize that though it was tough for them, we would be, and maybe were, looking again at these words of Jesus and going, you go, boy, you go get him. Like we'd be excited. We would love to hear him come and share that with things that we struggle with, especially within the church today. And so I just realizing that that wasn't that controversial. But today, I feel like what we're going to look at would be something that we might not feel the same way about. That what we're going to look at in what he shares here in this moment, the message that he shares in it, could easily elicit a different kind of response. I mean, something that was very controversial in the time that they were in that he shares, I think can be just as equally, if maybe not even more controversial in 2024, in May of 2024, in this time today, a couple thousand years later. It's centered around the family. And our thoughts about the family, his thoughts about the family, the kingdom's idea about the family, all this kind of stuff, it's centered around that. And I want to start it by just recognizing that what we're going to hear today, I don't think we're all going to look at. It's one of those things that makes us go, yeah, but what he's really saying, yeah, but because it's controversial based on what we feel about it. Many of us, I hope, I think, have had the experience of the privilege of experiencing a healthy, loving family. And because of that, at some level, family is of very high importance in our life. Or if we didn't experience a very loving, healthy family, we did not want that to be passed on when we had our own families, so family is of very high importance and priority in our lives. Let me just ask, would we agree, do most of us feel like family is important and of high priority? So I'm going to tell you now that we may cringe when we hear these words of Jesus today. And our first reaction might be to say, well, that's not what he's really saying. That's not what he's really getting at. So with that in mind, I want us to be very serious today about pondering what he's saying and determining if we're going to believe him or everyone else who taught us about this idea of family and where it should be on the priority and all this importance. Like all the things we've heard and been taught, I want us to look at his words compared to everything else that's there that's led us to feel the way that we do today, and then consider what it's going to look like to still follow him even in 2024, even today. Because again, when they heard this in their day, that was a, you got to be kidding me, I can't believe you just said that. I don't think it's going to be that far off today, so you ready? I'm setting all that up because I want us to see this. We're in chapter 12 of Matthew, starting in verse 46. So he's just undergone all these attacks, all these arguments, all this stuff. I encourage you to go back and continue to read it. And he's basically said, it's not about sacrifice, it's mercy. That's the relationship with me. So get over that mindset and let's go love people. That's what he just kept coming back to. Then, in verse 46, while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside. They wanted to speak to him, so someone told him, your mother and your brothers, they're standing outside wanting to speak to you. That's pretty sweet, isn't it? Mom and dad are out there. They've been hearing my teaching. They've been here. They've been, not mom and dad, mom and brothers are out there. They've been hearing my teaching. They've been standing by my side. They want to come talk to me. It's family. You know what? All of you, let's take a break. My mom, my brothers are here. I got to go out there and talk to them, right? That was Jesus' response. That's what you would think in the way that they thought. That's what you would think and what we were told we ought to do. But Jesus replies to them. This just, it makes you cringe. Who is my mother? Who are my brothers. And then he stops and he turns and he points at the disciples and he says, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and my sister and my mother. Cringe. Like, this is loving Jesus. This is the Jesus that we've created that says, well, this is what you ought to do. I mean, Jesus would surely say, okay, wait, mom's calling for me. Guys, just a minute. Family's first. This is a priority. I need to go talk to him. This is what we picture him doing. But his response is, who's my mother? And who are my brothers? Could you picture if you were his mom in that moment? Or his brothers in that moment? I've got 4 of them, well, and 1 mom, but 4 brothers. And I've been kind of picturing if I was in that situation and my mom was standing out there and my brothers were out there and I was here sharing and teaching and someone has a moment says, hey, your mom's out here and your brothers are out there. If I went, who's my mom? That would probably break her heart. If I said, who are my brothers? They'd be like, all right, you want to talk? Like, there might be a little bit of a competition in a battle. Or I've got a couple of very sarcastic brothers, and they'd be like, fine, we don't like you either. And it would be a good back and forth. But that's what it's like. He's there, and they're standing there, and they say, your mother and your brothers want to talk to you. And his response is, who is my mother, and who are my brothers? And then pointing to his disciples. Pointing to the disciples, not pointing to the crowd, pointing to the disciples. He said, here are my mother and brothers. And then this is the key line, because whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Luke records it, that moment, remembering it a little differently, because he remembers Jesus as saying, my mother and brothers are those who hear God's word and put it into practice. Do you see why I'm saying that in this priority, in this way that we think of all this, this does not sound right by Jesus. But it is what he said. There's something about it. And there's something behind it. And I want you to please listen and hear me. I don't think that what Jesus is saying here is that our earthly family is not important. I don't believe that our earthly family is not important. I don't think that's what Jesus is saying. I think what he is saying, though, what it seems that he is trying to get across, is that it is not always of the most importance. That there is a mindset, there's something that's been built, and it hurts his kingdom, it hurts his ministry, it hurts our witness, it hurts stuff sometimes if we can't at least keep in perspective that it's not always the most importance to him in relationships as we live as aliens and foreigners in this world before our eternal home with him. So hear me, I'm not saying, I don't think he thinks it's not important, but here he is with his family wanting to talk to him, and his answer is saying, who's that? Which is hard to swallow. It's hard to digest, especially because if we come from a loving family who's taught us to show respect. But it's just it. I don't think Jesus is actually giving permission to disrespect our families. I think it's more that he's trying to make it clear that in this kingdom of heaven that he was bringing, that he said from the very beginning, change the way you think, because something new is here, that the families we are born into are not necessarily the top priority in our lives all the time, but the family that we get to choose to be a part of because of him is the top priority in this new kingdom. It's part of me did not like coming to this point, by the way. I'm thinking Memorial Day, and we reach this when we're probably thinking of family, when we have people in mind. But I sit here and I read this, and I go, see how this feels so quite controversial? What Jesus is sharing here, again, is tough. And again, in no way do I think he's giving license to treat our families as second rate. It just means we should be looking at and treat the family that we've chosen to be adopted into with more value and care and effort than we often do. It's saying that you guys sitting there who call yourselves disciples of him, who are living your lives with the desire to go where he wants you to go and do what he wants you to do, are just as important to me as my immediate family is. If not, at times, even more. If that's the situation he's calling me into. If someone tries to twist this teaching in some way and make it say it's something about our family not being important, all they need to do is look again at Jesus and realize that he still thought family was very important. In fact, when it comes to the end of his life, when he's getting ready to breathe his last breaths, the thing that was on his mind was family. We see it play out from John's version as he recollects and he writes down that near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. So here's Jesus in his last breaths. And if we're thinking and we want to twist this, we could say what would be on his mind is, man, I hope all these people see it to come into the kingdom. I hope they get this now. Like all these things you would think of he'd have on there, or all these disciples, I want you now to be ready to know what you need to do. But what's on his mind as Jesus' mother stands there, and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene, what Jesus is on his mind when he sees his mother there and the disciple whom he loves standing nearby was taking care of her. Because his response when he sees all this taking place is, woman, here is your son. And to that disciple, here is your mother. And that was part of their culture. That was part of making sure that his mom was taken care of, because it says from that time on, this disciple took her into his home. If we want to try and twist this and say Jesus doesn't care about families, that's not right. The last thing on his mind before he was gone was to make sure his mother was taken care of. Because if you remember, his father was no longer around. His father was already gone. So his mother was going to be widowed, and she was the one on his mind. So family was definitely still a priority for Jesus, not the kingdom family on that. He put a premium importance on the care and concern of his mother as his time on earth was coming to an end. But again, that takes us back to go, then what is he talking about in this? What is he trying to teach in this? And I think, again, it's the reality that what's most important to him is living in the kingdom that he has, regardless of where the family's at. There's one commentary that I think writes it very well, and he says it well. It says, family ties were paramount. Being perceived as anti-family brought great reproach, but Jesus followed the practice he had demanded of others, the practice of the kingdom of God coming first. That's important to him. In fact, even before he got to this and in other areas of his ministry, we see this take place. There was another moment when Jesus saw a crowd around him, and he gave orders to cross the other side of the lake, but a teacher of the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I'm going to follow you wherever you go." And if you remember his responses, he starts going, "Are you sure that you can do this?" And the first thing he brings up as an "are you sure" is, hey, you know what? Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but I have no place to lay my head. So what he's saying is if you're going to say you're going to follow me wherever you're going to go, I need you to know I don't even know where I'm going. I don't even know what's next, and I don't have a home. Like the foxes have the nest, the dens, the birds, they have a nest. I don't even know where I'm going to lay my head. Are you sure you want to come with me? And then another one comes to him and says, hey, I'm going to follow you, but let me go and bury my father first. And in the same kind of response, Jesus wants to go, well, no. If you want to follow me, this is pretty serious, and let the dead bury their own dead. And we've talked about that before, but he's already set this up in other parts of his ministry. There's one other area in ministry where he lives this, and he actually shares, anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. These are hard words, which is why I go back to ask you, will you ponder Jesus and determine if we're going to actually believe him? Because this is one of those areas where it's easy for us to go, yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to do that here. No, I'll believe him where I want to believe him, but that's not what I've been taught by others, and that's not how I feel, so I can't go there, because there's a reason he shares it. And again, it's not because family's not important. It's just not the top priority in his kingdom all the time. And that's what he's trying to get across to us. I could share a lot of other smart stuff that people have said, and I had written down, but we're not going to today. I had a guy when I went to get a coffee this morning said, "Keep it short and powerful, please." I will not say his name. There's 4 letters in it. You figure it out from there. Will, we're going to go sometime, and no, I just don't feel like we need to share that right now, because I think you're getting the point. What he's wanting the family to be is an ecclesia in an ecclesia. He wants the family to be part of a bigger family. The ecclesia is us, the called out ones that are gathering. This is his top priority in the new kingdom that he brought. And what he wants us to do is get to a place where we realize the family we got to be born into is a little family within the family. It's a family that we can learn to live out what it means to live out this family. It's not necessarily the family that you do everything they say regardless of what he says with this family, but it's living as a family within a family. And so when we see this, there's a few things, if we begin to understand then what he's trying to get across to us then is that this is important. And this is what I want you to hear today. This is why I say I want you to find people through this time where you're being intentional about Jesus that will walk with you, is you are part of a family. We are in a Western culture. Individualization is huge. I'm going to do my thing, you do yours, you be you. Don't mess with me. Let me have my own opinion. Don't share anything. Quit judging me. All this kind of stuff. And we forget that, no, we're part of a family that he has developed to help us grow. And that's what he's trying to get across. And he's saying, put premium importance on that, even over your own earthly blood family. And when we do that, we can actually look at loving families that are earthly blood families and see ways that we can live that out. We begin to understand what that might look like to live in that family, including the reality that there's probably going to be fighting. There's probably going to be arguing. There's probably going to be disagreeing in this family. Loving families do argue and disagree and fight. Let's not pretend like it doesn't happen. I can pretty much guarantee you guys look really good when you show up on Sunday morning. Women are beautiful, the men look handsome, everybody's got a nice smile on your face. I will bet that some of you at some point, even on the way to church, have been arguing and fighting on the way here. But we're really good at going, "Hey, how's it going? I'm good." I mean, you've seen the shows, but how many of you, seriously, how many of you, when you got out of the van, said, "Shape up," wham, and then went in on there? Like, for real. You know it's happening. But the reality is families, even loving families, have their moments where they're fighting and they're arguing and they're disagreeing. That's going to happen in this family too. We need to understand that. That's what it's going to look like. But what we tend to do with this family, because we don't realize the importance of it, is then we go, "I'm out. And I'm going to go find another group that I agree with more, and I'm going to be a part of that." Until we don't agree with them, and then we go, "I'm out." And, "Oh, hey, that one's new. That might be work." And then, nope. And instead of knowing that that's just part of it. We can't do that with our earthly families, though we may try. We can't do it. But it's going to be the same here. But the next thing to realize is that while that may happen, these same loving families that fight are going to fight for one another when the time is right. And I think that's one reason why it's so big in his mind that we understand that we're part of a bigger family of high importance, because we need people to fight for us. We are under attack many different ways in many different areas of our lives by an enemy that we can't see. And we continue to think we can fight that on our own, but what often serves as the strongest force against the attacks of the enemy is the family that we're a part of to walk with us. And loving families, though they may fight and disagree and argue, when it comes to it, they're also the first ones to fight for each other. And we get an opportunity to be a part of something like that. You know, we're seeing it in a thing that because of the world we live in and because of the way we can create sound bites and because of the way that we can do all kinds of stuff, there's a crazy, controversial thing going on from one college speech that's taken place. Here's one of the things, that whole thing that struck me as I've been watching and seeing a response to that. There's people even in this town here that have written about this particular speech from this particular kicker from this particular team that we all know about that are defending him. They're defending him, they're behind him, they're loving him, but during football season and every other time, they hate him because he's a kicker for the Chiefs, and they don't like him. He's actually an enemy to them. They don't care for him because we create these weird things where people are an enemy just because they play for another team too. But all this stuff's going on, but now they're speaking up, and they're defending him. Right or wrong, whatever it may be, they're with him. And what got me when I saw, there was like 3 of them that are known anti-Chiefs people, anti-this, like all this other stuff, that are defending him. And what dawned on me in this whole thing was they were all 3 from the Catholic background. Because you know what they were doing in this moment was, you're coming after one of ours. Right or wrong, you're coming after one of ours, and we've got his back. Because that's what families do. And that's what happens in the kingdom family. And sometimes we could be all wrong in the moment, but we're going to have somebody to at least walk through it with us. If this Mr. Butt Kicker is his nickname, was all on his own, it would be tough to walk through this. But the bigger family is having his back on this. And we see this play out in so many different things. That was amazing to me to see how people that are against can turn for. Now again, we can continue to lead each other down right or wrong paths and be in different areas, but that's what families do. Is they'll fight with each other, but there are times where they can fight for each other if they feel like they're being wronged. And he wants us to see that and understand that we don't have to be on our own all the time. We have people in our corner. And through that fighting for, what loving families also continue to do is show grace to one another. And when the hurts of life call for it, actually bring a place of healing in their lives. That's why we need to be part and understanding of this family, because we have that opportunity to do for each other. And I'm not just talking about the Waukene Church of God family. I'm talking about the family of those who are disciples of Jesus Christ, as he said. Those who say they are following him. We have people out there that even through the hurts in our lives, whether we agree or disagree on things, that when it comes down to it, are also willing to show grace and love and mercy and help when we're hurting, in the places that we're hurting. I read an article. I don't know why I keep reading articles about country singers, but it was an article by a guy named Rodney Atkins. Did you know he's adopted? He's an adopted kid who had a really hard time getting adopted because he was a tough little kid, like colicky. Like he went to other people that were going to take him in, and they brought him back. They kept bringing him back because they couldn't handle this colicky little boy. Eventually, there was a family that, as the story goes, God really believes, and they couldn't have children. There was things going on in their lives. They also couldn't take someone on because of the health of the mother at the time. And that's why he kept getting put in all these other families, but eventually came to a place where he was brought back to them and ended up being with them. And he really feels like, and they felt like God orchestrated all of it from the very beginning. But there was a point in his country singing career that they were told him from this place in Nashville where they have all this, you probably need to change your last name. Because there's a lot of Atkins out there already. You're not going to be able to make a name for yourself because there's already too many Atkins out there. And again, I'm not in the country. I'll bet if I said it, you guys could start popping off names of different Atkins singers. But his final response was, I'm not going to do that. Because this family gave up so much for me to let me take on their last name. They cared for me when no one else wanted to keep me. They cared for me when I was hurting and when I was struggling. I'm not going to change my last name. Because this family showed grace and care and a way to help in a time of hurt. And his final comment in the article says, a family has a way of healing you. In fact, the love of your family may be one of the most healing powers in the universe, just as powerful sometimes as the most advanced medical drugs. Because that's what families do. And he knows that the kingdom family has that capability as they walk with each other. They may fight, they may disagree, they may argue. It's going on every day, right now, as we speak. But there are times that they'll also have each other's back, and they're going to show grace, and they're going to, in a truly loving family, provide help in a place of hurt. And so all this comes back, I believe, to why Jesus says, who's my mother? Who are my brothers? This, pointing at the disciples, these are my mother and my brothers and my sisters. Because he wanted them to see that they get to be part of something so much bigger, so much more. And it wasn't about him saying, so your family doesn't matter. It's about him saying you have something that could be even more important and powerful in your life. And he wants us to understand the value we have in this kingdom family that we get to be a part of. All that being said, as we close, there is one thing that I do think that we need to be aware of and be careful of in that can often happen, even in the language. Sometimes families can get pretty inclusive, especially in blood families. That's partly why we struggle with this idea of letting even somebody in the kingdom family have time when it's time for the personal family time. And that's some of the teaching that's been given. I can tell you in ministry myself that it's been given that you do not let, in those words, church work get in the way of family time. And I get it. I understand the heart behind it, because some people can give up on their family. They can, like I said, they can twist this, and their family does become second rate for everything else. But it was emphasized over and over, even while we're in school. You make sure that you value the family time. That family comes first. Your family is your top priority. You don't let anybody else in there. And again, I get it, the intention behind it, but what that can then happen to do is you become inclusive. And if somebody else were to call with a need or a hurt, you automatically go, nope, I'm with my family, and my family is all that matters. Hope you figure it out. And believe it or not, we do that in the kingdom family sometimes. Nope, this is our language. This is how we say it. This is how we do it. This is how we want to go about it. Nope, you don't. Nope, you can't wear that. Nope, you can't run there. Nope, you can't mess that up. Nope, you can't talk like that. Nope, you can't, because that's what we've taught, and this is our family, and we become inclusive. And those that are not yet actually in the family yet never get a chance to be a part of it. They never receive the help and the care and the grace. And that's a thing we have to fight, even with the language of a family, even with the language of being a family. Even families, the little ecclesias within the ecclesias, have to fight the inclusion on behalf of the bigger family. And I get just real honest one moment before we close today. You know, the hardest part of my thing here, whatever you want to call it, is family. In case you didn't know, I have a lot of family here. Everywhere I've gone, I have family here. And our family loves each other most of the time, until I say, who's my mother? Then it doesn't go over very well. Our family loves each other. We've been taught a lot. Been taught a lot about respecting and listening and, paying respect, learning, all that kind of stuff, and it's all good. But my job isn't just to serve my family. I'm not the pastor of the Brown Church of God, the Brown family. I'm the pastor at the Waukene Church of God. And there's a bigger kingdom family. But we can easily, and this is where I have to think about Jesus' words all the time. It's not about devaluing family. It's about understanding that guys like Will and Cindy and Daryl and Bill and all these that are here are just as much a part of a family as those that have the same last name. And the responsibility is bigger than the inclusion of one little one. And we have to fight that. But it's understanding what Jesus says to get to that point. It's realizing what he's trying to share, because he says, together, man, you can't imagine what can be done for each other and with each other. So that's your job. It's hard because you love your families and you've been taught their priority and you respect them and you care for them, and that's good. But Jesus says, who's my mother and brother and sisters? Those that call themselves my disciples, that are doing their best every day to try and live in my kingdom. That is my family, and you're part of it. All my hope is that we realize we're a part of something so much bigger. And there's so much potential behind that. And so you go all the way back to that song we sang. What a friend we have in Jesus is so true. What a gift we have in family. That may fight, disagree, argue, but we can have each other's backs, we can show grace, and we can provide help and care where needed. But let's not get inclusive. Let's continue to invite others to be adopted into the family as well, because he would love to see that grow and see his family just continue to go forth and bear fruit. That's what I think Jesus is trying to get across in this moment. That's the perspective he wants us to take on. I was going to have you just take a moment, and I still am actually, before I just pray and we go. I want you to grab that paper or the worship folder you have in front of you for a moment, if you would. And in your way, however you can, if you've been taught that, hey, this is the number one priority by whoever it was, however it was, or you have this idea that I'm only supposed to serve this is first, or in the ways that you've been taught to do that, I just encourage you to write that down. Write down areas if you've been taught that this is the one, this is the most important, this is, whoever that came from, however that is, just write that down. Write down the ways that you hear this today and you go, I struggle with this because. For a moment, I want you to write that down. And I actually want you to write it down for a reason. So I'm just going to give you a minute to do that. But if you've been taught in a way, or how, or it's a struggle to hear this and why, just write that on the back of that paper real quick, if you would. If you hear these words of Jesus and you think that's controversial, write down why. If you think Jared just made me mad today by sharing this, write down why. If there was something in it where you went, okay, I hear this, and here's something I need to consider, write that down too. And here's the reason why I'm having you do this. Because when Jesus shared this in the moment that he was in, he shook the people that were listening to it. In a culture that placed high emphasis and priority on family, he shook them with these words. I guarantee they didn't all just hear him and be like, yeah, okay. They weren't sure what to say. I'm pretty positive that in 2024, it shakes us to hear these words. And what I don't want us to do is walk out of here going, well, I don't agree with that, so whatever, I'm not going to do it. I want us to admit why. I want us to admit why we struggle with it. I want us to admit where that idea came from. I want us to be honest about that. And then all I want you to do is say, throughout this week, as you have your quiet time, God, here's where I'm at. Show me. Because I can't convince you on this anyway, on whatever way you want to believe on it. But all I can do is say, Jesus said it. And he said it to a group that didn't want to hear it. And there's a reason for it. And when I want us to continue to develop our relationship with him, I want us to be the ones to go to him and ponder him and look it over. And that's why I wanted you to write it down. Because I know that within about 25 seconds when we walk out of this building, if someone says, what did he just say? We'd be like, I don't remember. Or what I was thinking. That's just human nature. I live with a teacher. Know how those things work. And that's why I want us to write it down so we can continue to wrestle with them. Because, guys, I know that it's smaller at the moment today, but we're part of a family that is quite a gift. Quite a gift. We just need to understand how important they are and how much we can value that as we walk in his kingdom each and every day. And especially what we're going to talk about in the next few weeks on discipleship, we're going to need each other. We're going to need each other on it. So God, as we just close our time together here, I pray you would help us to be honest in this. I'm honest. I don't expect it to be one where we walk away just fired up and excited, because it's hard to hear something that shares something a little different than what we're taught in so many places by so many people. So God, I pray that you would help us to hear what's truly being said, what Jesus was truly trying to get across. Not so that we can just become a bunch of rebels that disrespect our families and don't care about what they think, but that we can actually see the value of a bigger family that you've been developing for thousands of years. That as we walk through the things that we talked about earlier and we laid at your feet earlier, we can be reminded that there is a group of people that you've been putting together that can walk with us. They can help us through these things that even though we put on a tough guy or a tough gal act, we know that we're struggling and we need help. And so that we can see that you've created that help to bring us strength, to bring us healing when needed. If nothing else, just to bring us care, to know that somebody else does. So God, just don't let us go from this place and just throw it aside and not worry about it. But as those that say we want to ponder you, to believe you and follow you, give us the courage to wrestle with this. And then also speak to us. Help us to hear you and what you had in mind. And then just help us to cherish the gift that we have in each other. And thank you for it. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I think the sun's coming out.